Hello, how's it going? Hey. E aí, Camilo, tudo bem? Tardão, né? Deixa eu ver. Vou colocar aqui meu. Let me put my phone here on airplane mode so I'm not disturbed. Right. Let's see, we have 8 right now. That's good. In about 1 minute, then we're going to start this. Let me just set up my files here. Okay, let's go. All right, let me start sharing this thing. Okay, so let me just move this bar here to the other side, right there. So yesterday we did some work on creating the micro displacement, right? Like the macro geometry, the little map that we're going to use to tile and break up the surface even further, right? So this is not to be confused with the pores. This is kind of like a miniature version of that, just like in a much more concentrated form, you know, that's going to fill up the gaps in between the pores themselves. So I did a little bit more work in here just to try to bring things down and up a little bit, just like to even the surface. So the tiles don't look like so evident, but you're gonna still see a lot of the pattern in the when I apply just this, just to do a test for you guys to see. But then, like I said yesterday, once this is mixed with the displacement map, this is gonna be completely like, you're not gonna see the pattern, you know. But I'm gonna show you how it looks like in Maya right now. So this is just applied just so you can see what's going on, only 10 times the repetition, right? So if I do this, let's say like 5 times. So that's that pattern applied with the bump map here. Let me show you how I did this first. First thing, I created a new shader. So before we had our, let me do this, you can do it all over again. So we had just our main shader that was the skin shader, right? And then what I did, I actually created this shader here. Let me delete it and create it again. Don't need that. I need that, and the file I don't need either, so I can do it again. So I created a new shader. So I went to AI standard surface here from Arnold, and then I clicked on it. And the first thing, I actually reduced the coloring here. I changed it to halfway, like, you know, like kind of grayish, a little bit lower than that. And then let's name this one micro bump, something like that. And then to activate the bump, so you see, like the model now has no shader whatsoever. So I'm gonna assign this one. So I'm gonna click on it, and I'm gonna right click, assign material to selection. So we have that one assigned now. And then the other thing we're gonna have to do, if we are just gonna test just the bump map, if it's working, we're gonna turn off the displacement, right? So the first thing I did in the settings, if you remember here, I had Catmull Clark set to 3 or 4. So I brought the iterations back to 0. So this is basically like if you click, select the mesh and press Control A, you bring the attribute editor in Maya, right? So by scrolling down, you're gonna find the Arnold tab. And under, like, it's probably the second tab. The first one, I'm gonna have the transformations in here. The second one, I'm gonna have all the information about the mesh, and then Arnold tab. And then that's where we set up everything, including the shared SSS and everything. So Catmull Clark back to 0, and then you're gonna scroll down, and under displacement attributes, gonna put height at 0. So that's basically what you're gonna do. Because even if you assign a different shader, those parameters are basically parts of the attributes of the mesh itself. So it's still gonna create the displacement map, even if you're changing the shader. So, or I could just like unplug the, you know, the displacement map as well. I could do that, but just showing where to find things here. So now I have this applied to the mesh, and then let's just render. So we're gonna be like a plain render. All right, let's do it again here. So there's nothing assigned to it, right? So that's just the mesh in there, just the base mesh. So let's plug the bump map that we just created, that one from ZBrush that we captured yesterday. Remember, we cropped on in Photoshop just to make a tile and everything. So now we're gonna do this. Let's just minimize this one. I'm gonna keep my, I'm gonna select my mesh, and then it should bring the attribute editor here. And then if I go all the way to the side, you're gonna have the micro bump that was the shader I just assigned. And then all the way down in the shader here, you're gonna notice like I have the base, specular, all that stuff. All the way down, you're gonna have a tab that's called geometry. So you click that one, expand it, and then you're gonna go like thin wall. This is just like if you're using like creating like a bubble made out of soap or something like that, you know. So like little bubbles and things like that. But we are not gonna go thin wall. We are not even adding transparency in this case here. So bump mapping, I'm gonna click that one, and then I'm gonna select file in here. And right here, I'm gonna click again in this little arrow right here, and then I'm gonna select my map. So I'm gonna go all the way up, and then turn off the filtering of the map, and I'm gonna click this box here, just to select the map. And the latest one I created was the number 4. That's the one I was doing some tests. Basically the same. Like the 1 is the one we did yesterday, but this one is the one that I made a little bit more even, and I actually cropped in a different spot. So, but it's basically the same sculpture. So this one, I'm gonna open it. And now you're gonna see, this is a bump map applied, right? So you're gonna see like it's very wacky in there because it's just one repetition. So I'm gonna scroll down here, and first I'm gonna turn off my auto generate TX textures. Of course, at the end you can actually turn all of them on again, but for now just off. And then under UV coordinates right here, you're gonna see it's yellow. You're gonna click that little box in here, this little arrow, and it's gonna expand. And then here you can actually multiply this map. So if I, for example, if I go to like 5 here, right, 5 by 5, you get something like that. And it's all based on the UV space, of course. So the nose, for example, here, I can tell it would be better if I actually re-unfolded everything. Just make sure I have the same distribution for everything. Because this mesh here, as you remember, it was just like, I wasn't totally careful. I was just pulling things around, right, and then projecting. But in this case here would be maybe a good idea to actually just like unfold everything. We can do this. But just to show how it's supposed to actually work, so if I go to the side here, that's a good area that has a similar distribution right here in the cheeks. So I'm gonna keep cranking this. And the more I crank this number here higher, the more crunch is gonna get, because it's the depth looks very shallow if I go just one repetition, right? But as I go smaller and smaller, the depth is gonna look too big. So I'm gonna have to start reducing the depth as well. So if I go to something like, let's say 20, like that. So now you have the micro bump doing this, but it looks super crunchy. So I'm gonna go back, click this arrow right here, and then let's click again. And then I'm back to my bump depth in here. So I'm gonna just like reduce this to something very small, like 0.1. You can see a little bit better now. Still quite crunchy, especially if I'm gonna go even smaller, and that's the case. We're gonna have to go much smaller because this, the size it is right now is gonna compete with our pores, and we don't want that. We want just a micro stuff. So I'm gonna just do even lower than that, 0.02, like that. So it looks very small right now. It's like very faint, but it's because we don't have enough repetition. So like I said, if you keep going smaller and smaller, in relation to the size of the, to the scale, the depth is gonna look deeper and deeper. So if I go to 50 here, right? Now we start seeing a little bit more of a pattern. You're gonna start seeing like little lines you can actually identify, right? But like I said, don't worry about this stuff, because once the displacement map is in place, everything is gonna look good. So at this point here, if I go to the nose to use as a reference, see, it's very like, it's still very large, especially because my UVs are very stretched out in here. Like I said, I have to kind of like unfold everything again, just make sure that things are looking good. And I can do this maybe like even before I go to ZBrush, just like do a little quick unfolding just to show you guys. And just make sure that things are even. And so I'm gonna keep repeating this. Even at 100, it might be too little. So close this. So at 100, let's see how much I get here. It's like the nose. Let's just select this area here. So the breakup started to look better, but I'm gonna keep going with this number. Even like if I go, let's say 400 here by 400 repetitions, because it's a 800 by 800 pixels map, right? So now we have like a very, very tiny patterning here. That might be too small. Let's see if I get closer to the nose here, to the tip. Yeah, the more you multiply that number, the more you're gonna see like pattern, right? But let's see how it resolves here with the render first. Yeah, it looks pretty small, but let's it looks very you know, striped in there. But let's keep that number at 400 right now, and let's just reduce this bump height a little bit. So like at, see, let's keep it to at 20. Let's keep it like that. So now if I look at everything from a distance, you're gonna see the pattern all over the place. It looks very mechanical. It looks like a kind of like a snake skin, right? Now, what you have to remember is that this pattern here, we are not gonna see it everywhere because you're gonna use like a bump height to actually modulate where you want it to show up. And once it's mixed in between the pores, this is gonna blend very nicely. So let's keep the way it is right now. You see like it's kind of small and it's gonna resolve, take some time to resolve. Looks very like pretty much like almost like machine made, but let's not worry about it right now. So what are we gonna do? Now that let's pretend I'm happy with the scale, which can be a little smaller even, but let's pretend I'm happy with the scale. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to my hypershade, and now let's just get those two, like the new shader that I just created just for this test, and the skin shader. Both I selected both nodes with shift, right? Shift, and then you can go to, where did my menu go here? It's weird. My menu disappeared. So let's see if it reappears here somewhere. That's weird. I think I got rid of it. Oh yeah. I don't even know how to recover it. That's funny. So okay, let's get back to this. Let's get to micro and then the new skin. Let's select both and then let's use maybe this one here. So input and output connections. So that's the little shortcut in there. So now I have both in here. And in one of them I have those, I have the displacement map plugged, and the other one, so that's this one, the bottom one is the skin. I can show you right here, the skin, and then the micro bump. So what I have to do now is actually, now that I did the test and I actually like, let's pretend I like the bump size, I'm just gonna plug that bump into this skin shader so I can do some tests. So I'm gonna click this one, and then it's gonna show the options right here on the side, right? So I have all the parameters I already used. So I have my displacement map plugged in there. I have my color map that we plugged yesterday, and random walk, that's the scale I'm using, all that stuff. So under geometry down there, I can just click the this one here, the bump, click with the middle mouse, to click and drag right there, right? So now you see there's a connection. I could as well like just click this little dot and then just drag all the way there, like so. If I click this one here under normal camera, right? And then you get the same effect basically. So if I click this guy here, you're gonna see it's plugged in there again. And that's our normal map. So now let's assign again this shader, the skin shader, back to our model. And at this point, the displacement has no height because we eliminated it. So let's just see how it behaves in a small chunk right here. This is just the bump map right now, so there's no displacement, right? So you might see the little pattern. Normally, like the nose is easier to see what's going on, but let's see if this area here, if you can see anything. It's gonna resolve. So it started to resolve in there. You're gonna see it's kind of like this snake kind of skin, right? But the cool thing is that you start to see a little bit of the little dots in there. This is very low resolution too. So I have to grow here to zoom in just to show you guys with more resolution. But you're gonna start seeing this little pattern in there, but there's nothing like a displacement map yet. So let's just go back in here. And let's tweak the displacement again. So I'm gonna click the object and then go to attribute editor, and then go back here in the second tab, like I said. So the first one has the transformations. The second one has the information we need under the Arnold tab, right there. No, right there. So Arnold tab. So I'm gonna go down, and I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna tweak the Catmull Clark. I'm gonna go to 3. But I'm gonna show you guys that I did a few tests with iterations at 1, 3, 4, and 5, and you're gonna see the difference. Especially when you have micro HD geometry, it's good that if your machine can afford for you to go to 5, the results are kind of like, it's interesting because it's like it's a small difference between 5 and 4, but depending on the type of like structures, microstructures we sculpted. The folds look more interesting, you know. It's like they have a little bit more form. It's very subtle difference, but between the level 3 and 5 definitely has a difference. So let's keep it 3 for now, so it doesn't take too long to calculate. And then the height, I'm gonna switch back to 1, so we can get some displacement in there. So let's expand this area right here. Let's actually make it a little bit bigger in the screen like that. And get this around here. Let's see what's the area you're gonna get, and let's play it. So it takes a little bit for Arnold to process like the subdivisions, right? It has to subdivide this mesh entirely 3 times, like we asked. So let's see, subdividing. I know it's rendering when my machine starts spinning and making noises in there. It's gonna start the rendering. So it's resolving now. Now we have our little skin that we did from the first day, actually, right? The first renders we did. This one doesn't have the updated mesh and new detail. But let's see what we get, and then we can make a comparison here, a difference between with the micro displacement, with the micro bump, and without it. So let's pick up an area that we actually see the detail better. Like the chicken here has more spec, I think. So let's get a smaller area like that. Then we can just zoom in here. Let's just wait a little bit until it resolves. In the meantime, I can show you the comparisons in here, so you're not bored in there. So this is basically like what I did yesterday. I cranked the coat just to test if the bumpy was affecting the coat. It's in fact affecting it. It actually breaks it up. So I did 2 things here. The first one here, you see this one, it's without the micro bump. So basically this one is just a displacement map with a very cranked coat on top, right? Like it's that one, the coat. But this one here has the this one here has the micro bump on top. So super shiny without the micro bump. With the micro bump, less shiny because it's breaking up the form even further, right? You're gonna notice some interesting little micro breakups gonna start happening here. But of course, this one here has 1 subdivision level only when I render, so it doesn't have much detail, right? So it's kind of, you can barely see anything. But if you get like really close and I switch here, you see like the first one here, this one, you're gonna see more little dots. So that's the spec that's actually breaking up, right, from the micro bump. And then, but this is just 1 subdivision level. So let's see what happens when I render with the 3 subdivision levels, right? In that same tab that we were just looking at. So 1 subdivision level with 3, now you start seeing the pores, right? All this structure here in the corner of the nose that was completely blend before, now you start seeing it, right? But then you get subdivision 4, you get a little bit further. So like, especially like those little pores right here where the mouse is, See those guys here? So when I switch, you take a look what happens, look. You get much more clarity in them. Like the scatter really gets inside of the pore and actually works as it should. And then at subdivision level 5, you get this one here. So between 4 and 5, it's very subtle difference. But certain things, for example, like if I get this tiny little pore right here, pay attention to that one, you know, you get a little bit more definition inside. There's a little bit more of a dark spot in there, right? So it, like I said, if you can, if you're gonna do like zoom, like close-up shots like that, and your machine can afford it, I would say like if you can subdivide to 5, for example, you're gonna get like more detail, of course. And of course, like here, it's a little noisy, as you can tell. My render is a little noisy. And the noise is coming from the settings, right? The render settings here, it's very low right now. We are using just 6 for camera anti-alias. And normally when I render those shots, when I post online, I render at between like 10 and 14. So at 14, it gets much smoother. And a lot of that detail is gonna resolve, but it's just makes much longer to render because you generate more samples when you do that, right? So that's why we're doing everything like in low samples, just so we can see the results without torturing you guys. So, so this is the result of the render we just did. So 2 things to observe here. The first, like you can definitely see the black heads in here. Thing that was being washed out before. But remember what I did yesterday with that node that I added that was just to color correct everything. Now all of a sudden you have like a much more rich color palette, right? So you're getting much more color variations. And then this one here has the micro-displacement assigned to it, the micro bump assigned to it, but we are subdividing this whole thing only 3 times. So I don't know how much we're gonna see the difference, but let's do this. Let's just save this as our test. So store snapshot. And I'm gonna go back to my face in there. It's selected already. So let's go back to the shader itself, stand new skin right here. And then under the bump mapping, click on it, go back 1 level here. And then we are using like 0.20, right? 0.020 for the height of it. And it's a height that's going across the board. The entire mesh is receiving the same treatment, right? At this point, we don't have a map to modulate how the height's going to be affected. So what I mean by that is this. So you see, like if I keep everything at 0.020 here, the micro bump is actually breaking up the entire surface of the whole face. So it's making everything more diffuse. Like it's breaking the specular much more rough, right? Like it's breaking up until it makes rough. So it's kind of like a diffuse kind of effect instead of like super shiny. But there are areas in the face we need it to be shiny, like the eyelids, right? We need like in the lips, like nose, the tip of the nose, much less bumpiness than this, right? So that's why we're gonna control this with a map later on, and we're gonna plug that map under the bump height in here. But for now, just to test the effect here, let's see if we are seeing anything of difference right now. Let's keep it 0. And then we can compare what happens. Let's see. So this is the same spot, so I can compare like a before and after kind of thing here. Let's see how it resolves. And but just as a reminder, of course, we are subdividing the mesh here just 3 times. At 4 times, probably I would get like a nice crisper displacement work, right? And like I said, like this is just like the displacement we did like at the very first time that I was doing some work like that. But I did a lot of adjustments yesterday, and I sculpted the entire like eye area. And I'm actually curious to see how the eye area is behaving. So the next step, we're going to be bringing that, like updating the mesh, so I can show you how I normally update my mesh, and that affects the groom as well. The groom as well that we are going to be working on, like in a probably next. I don't know if next week we're going to start grooming, because next week my intention is to actually start eye right on Monday. So basically I go through the whole structure of how I assemble the eyes, very important piece, how I sculpt the iris and all that good stuff. So you see around this area here, it's very much like a orange kind of, kind of thing. it's very like subtle, but especially like in this area here, you're probably going to be able to see more. So around here, if I switch between this one and this one, that's the difference between having no micro bump and then with the micro bump, right? It's very, very subtle. Of course, like you can crank the intensity more or less, and you can modulate as well. So to generate areas like shinier than others, right? But you can already see that it has a little bit more of a natural feel, especially in those areas of high specularity, like this one. So if I click that, it goes from this super shiny, like a shrink wrap kind of thing to this, right? And it's basically the same render, and the only difference is the bump is applied to one and the other one that has no bump. So all those little details, you know, it's like anything you add to increase a little bit of the realism, you know, it's like that's the whole intention. Especially here, look, like all this stuff here looks so plasticky, right? And a lot of renders I see out there, they suffer from this problem, you know, it's like they look very plasticky sometimes. But, you know, just breaking up a little bit further like that, it adds so much more already. It's subtle, but it's so much more interesting, you know. So let's update this mesh here, and then let's talk about, yeah, especially from distance here, it looks so much nicer, you know, instead of this plastic, like that, you know, much more interesting. So let's save this file here first, so we don't lose the stuff we are doing. As you know me, I don't save very often for some, okay, so 2, actually 3. Okay, and then let's go back here to, let's update the scene to actually get the latest model and like get the latest displacement and everything. So first thing, I'm just gonna stop the render if it's running. So I'm gonna just click that one so it stops for good. And then let's go back to my ZBrush and switch to my guy, right? So now I have that entire area. Let's do a preview here. So if I do a preview, it should render the HD. Remember, like if you want to just do a preview of the HD, you just put your mouse like rested outside of the mesh, and then you just press A instead of like on top of it, and then it's going to generate a preview like that. So that's what we sculpted yesterday. And after the class, I spent probably like another 1.5 to 2 hours going through this stuff and then refining some other stuff, you know, and started doing this area that later is going to look much more subtle than this. I'm going to start like removing some of the stuff and going through those wrinkles in here and actually populating them with some pores. And remember, like my philosophy is actually, sometimes I go backwards, right? Sometimes I define the wrinkles first, and then I fill up the spaces with the pores, you know, instead of like doing the opposite, doing the pores and then trying to connect the dots. So if I do the opposite, I try to follow those lines with each one of the pore, for example, just to give this impression they are actually in line with each other and connecting to each other. So let's generate those the displacement. Let's do that process again. Let's go back to the mid resolution. So basically like not the lowest, but one subdivision level more. And I'm gonna export this mesh. OBJ. Just make sure that I'm paying attention to the time here. And if my alarm is set, so yeah, 10:28. Okay, cool. So let's export this one as a stand mid resolution 4. Right, and then go to the lowest resolution, and I can export this one as the lowest resolution 4. Actually, good to repeat this process because you're going to be using this a lot, and it's good to remember it. So under morph target, if you have any morph target saved, you're going to have to delete it. So if you have anything there you want to save now, you can actually export this as an OBJ and then import back later on so you can recover your morph target. But at this point, we're going to delete it. So delete morph target. So those 3 steps again: store, switch, import. And then I'm going to import my low resolution mesh that I just exported. It doesn't look like it changed anything because it didn't. But in the background, ZBrush is doing its thing. You know, it's actually comparing those 2 meshes and making sure things are good. Like we did last time, I'm gonna save my file first, because if you remember, ZBrush bugged at the end of the export. I don't know if it's because my focus wasn't in the screen and I was working with it in the background, but it bugged in there. So we don't want to lose anything. So I'm just going to save it. Should take a little bit. And then the next step we're going to do, we're going to export those maps in the background. At the same time, we're going to re-import this mesh in Maya and set things up in there. And then once the maps are exported, we can go back here, come back to ZBrush. Instead of like going through the color tutorial that I want to do like a little bit more time, right? I'm going to need like a full class to talk about the color, the painting, the textures. So instead of that, we're going to concentrate on the other maps, like the specular map and which is basically like going to be the same process, of course, as poly paint. But I'm not going to be painting the colors. I'm going to be painting just like black and white maps, just so we can use to see the difference between what we have in there and what we're going to do. So at this point, I don't need to export anything related to texture poly paint because we already have the color. So I didn't do anything about the color just yet. So it's just a displacement map. All the settings you already have in there, like 8K, switch morph target, adaptive, 4, no UVs, smooth UV, mid at 0, and then 32 XR. So let's create the map. As I told you, like this name right here on the side, like the name of the subtool is going to be the name of the file exported. And then for the folder, Maya looks for the source image folder by default. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to save everything in there. So this process should take about like 8 minutes, like we saw the other day. So in the meantime, let's go back to Maya. And then let's see, update this model here. So I showed this one before in one of those, I think it was the first class or maybe like the preview, how I normally update my meshes. So the way it works is like this. So I have the mesh in there. I'm going to just bring the new one. I'm going to use import obj. And then under here, just make sure you always have single object. If you didn't set this one, it's time to set it now and then save the setting so you don't need to do it next time. So I'm going to go to import and I'm going to find my obj folder. And it should be the mid resolution. So let's go by date. Mid resolution 4. So low resolution is the one I'm using just to compare it to and do the morph target trick. But the mid resolution is the one we are rendering. So I'm going to import it. So it looks slightly different, especially the ears. If you look at the wireframe, there is a difference. Oh, I thought it was much different. Maybe I already updated the other time, but I don't know. It seemed like I did it. Oh, I think my render is running in the background here. It's getting very slow. Let's see. Or maybe it's just ZBrush that's dragging it. Yeah, this one is stopped. Okay. So let's go back into my outliner, which you can access from here as well. So this is the outliner right there. Right. And then we're going to go to the latest, the latest object we imported is this one here. Yeah, there's a big difference. Now I can see it. So the ears are much like, they are kind of like Dumbo before I kind of like brought everything in. So you can see the difference in there. So this is the new model I just brought. I select it first, and then I right click, and I select the old one. And then I'm going to go to Mesh, Transfer Attributes. And then there's the option box. I'm going to click on it. By default, all those settings are different from this, but this is the ones I use for transferring just the vertex position based on the topology, because at this point we don't change the topology anymore. It's everything, it's set. So just the vertex position, turn on, everything off. Sample space, we're gonna use topology. So, you know, you can use UV, but if the UVs change slightly, it probably is not gonna be an exact copy. It's much faster if you do by UV, but topology is more guaranteed. It's a one-to-one translation. So topology and then mirroring off, closes along normal or point, it kind of doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna click transfer. So I select the latest one first, right, with the control, and then press the original one, right? And then we're gonna transfer from that one to this one. It's kind of like the opposite, right? If you're transferring the form from this one to that one, like you select the destination first and then the the origin. So transfer is going to take a little bit. It's actually comparing everything, right? And it's only like 69,000 polys, so it shouldn't be too long. It doesn't change like the time if you have like the XGen applied. It takes a little bit longer because the XGen should have to, you know, adapt and go and pop to the right places. But it should be, in terms of transferring, should be fairly similar time. Still processing. Yeah, I have a bunch of things going at the same time. Like I have all those files open in Photoshop plus ZBrush rendering the background and plus this. So I think it's a good time to actually close my Photoshop. We don't need this. Yeah. Wow, I had a ton of stuff open. Anyway, okay. Go back to Maya here. Now it's transferred, right? Like finally finished. And then the thing that I mentioned before, and when I demonstrated this first, is that if I simply delete this new mesh from here, everything's going to pop back to the old place because it has to be frozen, right? It has to be baked into it. So to do that, you can just like delete the history. So you can select both models and then just click history, which is basically here, edit, delete by type, and then history. So I'm going to click that one. And then I normally do like both delete all by type and then history as well. So I have these two shortcuts I added in here. So now I can easily just delete the latest one, and the other one should have everything baked. So that's the new model right there, right? So if I do something like this, what happens? What happens is that in this case, I don't need to go and set up everything again here. So the properties for the object are the same. You can also use a morph target if you want. You can just use a blend shape, right? Like just a blend shape and do that way. I normally use this one here because I don't have to create new things. You know, it's kind of like straightforward to me, but it's optional to you guys if you want to use blend shapes. So totally fine. So now that we have this, we should have the maps very soon. Let's see how ZBrush is doing there. Still working, so let's not bother ZBrush. Let's not upset ZBrush. You never upset ZBrush. You can pay a high price if you do. So let's see what else we can talk about while it's processing. Let's see. I had something to show you guys. Oh, there's an interesting thing here. I was showing like my own face, but I saved some references from like old people. There is a collection of, I don't know where I found this. It's like people like over 100-year-old or something like that, or about 100-year-olds. And this is kind of like similar to the Roy model I was working on, which is pretty crazy, right? That the skin goes from that very structured form to something that's almost like, you know, it's almost like a not real. And then there's like this kind of skin, and I was like, so awesome. And like I said, I mean, like all the pores that you still see a little bit visible right here, but when you get here, now it becomes something else, right? The wrinkles kind of take over, and almost like the pores kind of melt away and become something else. It's very leathery. So it's very interesting to observe these things. I have some stuff like my wife, she was like my model for this one. And let's see if it's gonna open. I think it's gonna open Photoshop maybe. Yeah, it's not opening. Let's see if I have something else that can open it here. Let's do this guy here. If you guys don't have it, you can install this program that's called XNView. It's an excellent little program. The program is actually free. And you can browse basically like any type of file with it. You know, it's like it opens everything. Like image related, of course. So like my wife's eye here when I was photographing, it's very interesting. Like the little textures, oops. Like this little, and you see the peach fuzz in here as well. Why is it doing that? Huh, interesting. The zoom is kind of funky right now. Let me do it manually. Look at the structure here. How cool is that? You know, it's like this is like a macro. Oh man, I'm doing it again. What a mess. Get back here. I love this program. I just have to learn how to use it. God damn it. So, and then here, for example, like I love this stuff. I tried to do this with the Dick Smith model to actually have the impression that those little guys are going inside of the skin. So I did a little trick with the ambient occlusion pass, you know, but it's so hard to do this. I don't think like Arnold can do this just yet because he kind of like, he needs a deeper surface to be able to show something like that. And but I might be wrong. I don't know. Maybe the random walk is working better with that. We can actually test and see if we can get something more like that. So let's see ZBrush if it's already finished. Okay, actually it took only 6 minutes and a half to export the freaking maps, man. How cool is that? How cool is HD geometry? Huh? It's pretty awesome. So let's update all those maps in Maya. And now we should get some nicer renders already with those more updated maps. So let's go back to my Hypershade, whatever it is, right here, which is becoming a little messy right now. Let's get this guy. I cannot tell what happened with with my menu, and I don't know how to recover actually. Let's see under my workspaces. Maybe if I just like reset the workspace here, maybe it does something. Let's see, modeling standard. Let's try that. Yeah, it's gone. So I'm gonna have to recover it later, see how it works. Yeah, I only use Maya for about 20 years, so you know, I never know how this thing works. Every new version they change shit. Anyway, so let's update this map. Which is the displacement right here. So if I click this guy here, the stand LR3 that we had before, so I'm going to replace it with the LR4. This one, you can pick any one of those actually. It can be number 5, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to open it. And then if Arnold recognizes it, it basically like populates, if you have the UDIM Mari here selected, you're going to see the number of tiles that you have exported. So he recognized the 5 in there. So now we have a nicer displacement. And I'm actually excited because I'd never seen the render for the eye area. So we're going to be seeing for the first time. So let's see if that's working. I believe it is. So let's see. So let's get that area right there. Let's do a little render. And then we're going to start playing with the roughness map, which is an interesting thing to do, you know. In Arnold, you have an actual roughness specular, of course, that you can use a black and white map to actually, you know, modulate things and use more roughness or not. So basically, like the spec looks more, you know, sharper and then more diffuse. But that's kind of like a fake way of doing it. I want to do something that actually emulates what happens in the real world, which is if the surface is not as shiny, it's a combination of two things. The first one is going to be like how oily that region is, right? So we have the T-zone, right? Like the forehead, the nose, and then the cheeks is slightly less, and then the lips. But then on top of that, on top of the oil thing, there is also the amount of breakup in the surface. So if the surface is more broken up, eventually you're gonna get a rougher representation of the skin than something that has no bumps whatsoever, that we're gonna see something completely shiny, right? So now I can see the eyes in there. Let's just try to get a little bit of a zoom here. I wanna see that if the detail we sculpted yesterday is actually being created correctly. Let's bring it here. Let's put it at 1. It's so funny to see without the eyeball or anything. Let's see how this is going to turn out. Yeah, this transition here, I'm kind of like thinking about if it's going to work too, because remember, like I went from pores to no pores whatsoever, just like creating this, you know, kind of like starting with the pores the way they are and then making them more stretchy. So basically like sculpting them to look more stretchy. And then eventually just making them turn into like complete, like just like wrinkles, right? Like everything is very stretchy. Let's see how this thing resolves. Oh, I think I forgot to actually turn on the bump map, right? So let's try that. Let's see if the bump is in there. Because I want to make sure that's actually breaking things up. So sure enough, we don't have bumps. So let's crank that. Let's put like a, maybe like a 25, because it was 20 before. So we get more of that breakup. And instead of like rendering the entire thing, let's just get this a small spot here. If you click that little rectangle in there, you just open a little area. So let's get something around here, perhaps. And we can just see what's gonna happen around there. And then, of course, like as you do those render tests, you're gonna start seeing like, okay, maybe the scatter is too strong, but then never judge just by looking at the extreme close-ups, because even photographs, you know, it's like the ones I showed the other day. If you're looking at something like super close, it looks much more like a jelly, right? Like the skin looks very, very translucent from up close, and then if you're gonna judge it, you always put some from a distance first. You know, it's like you see like, okay, does it look too waxy right now? And then if it doesn't, if it looks kind of correct, when you zoom in, you should see something that looks more scattered than it should. But if it's still too exaggerated, of course, you can always go back to the scale that we have in there. That I told you guys to use like 0.110. 0.110 if it was like a world scale. But if you prefer something that's more solid, then there are a couple of things you can do to make it more solid. The first one is to play with the anisotropic, that little slider in there that we have at 0.2 right now for the skin, which is causing more front scattering than back scatter, right? We're kind of like shifting a little bit towards the front. So you can put back to 0, for example, and then the scatter is kind of gonna go away a little bit. You can play with scale. Instead of like 0.110, you can put like 0.1 or 0.090, something like that. And if you still want to have more of like a solid feel to it, instead of like this kind of like more flashy, for example, if you want to simulate like a rubber mask or something, then you can mix the let's see, the base color, right? Like top of your, so let me just switch back here. So if you go back to your base right here for the diffuse, right? You can use that base mixed in here in the subsurface. Remember when I said before, like when you use the subsurface at a 1.0 here, 1.0, it's basically like 100% subsurface. But if you put like a mix of any other number, for example, like 0.5, it's gonna mix half subsurface and half diffuse, right? So if you have a map assigned to your color in here, then it's gonna mix with that map, right? It's gonna mix with it and create something that's a little bit less scattery, right? So like I said before, so 0.2, that's the anisotropy here. So this one here, or anisotropy, I think that's. So when you do that, basically like it becomes more like front scatter. If you go negative number, it's gonna go more like the back scatter, right? And for the result of the rendering here, we can see that the stuff is starting to work. It's still super shiny because I have my coat like cranked all the way to 1 here, so it's gonna look shiny. But I want to do this just so I can see the forms first before we go and make everything more subtle, right? We want to make sure that everything is cranked to the max. So yeah, I think that's gonna work fine. Once I have everything, you know, dialed in, it's gonna work just fine, I think. And the pores in here, they're kind of starting to mix like I was predicting. So kind of like they become those stretched kind of surfaces, and then they become just basically like stretched like wrinkles. And like I said before, we are subdividing this only 3 times. If I crank this to 5 times, you're gonna see even more detail. And if I want to see something without any noise like we have here, then I'm gonna have to crank the samples and then that's going to affect the render times, right? But it looks pretty okay. I think it's going to look nice once we have everything in place. So now that we have this and we have the maps all updated, let's do this. Let's save this snapshot, and then let's play with the modulation of the roughness, right? Because that's the part that's interesting. In order to do that, what we can do, we can actually go back to our model with just that simple test shader that we have that just have the bump in there. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to just like click this one, and then I'm going to turn off. The iterations are going to go down to 0, and then 0 for height. So there's no displacement now. And then I'm going to go back to my hyper shade right here and find my macro. So this guy here. And I'm going to expand it. And expand it with this one. So that's the micro bump. And then I'm going to just assign again. So this guy here should give me just that very simple shader again. And then we can modulate it to see the results in the screen. So let's do a little render there. See, that's back to the snake skin kind of thing, right? So let's do this. Let's add a map now. So in ZBrush, normally when I have those meshes, when I'm working on the models in here, I want to create like my textures, the specular map and the bump height map. You can see here, specular and bump depth, right? Still like with the Rick Baker prefix in there. I normally create a copy of this subtool. So what I do, I just like go click the subtool, of course, and then you can just say duplicate, right? It's going to create a copy for you. And I do this twice, so I have like 2 copies of it. In this case here, since I already have them, I'm just going to update them because they're going to look like Rick Baker like that, and it's a bigger resolution, a bigger scale as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to export at the highest resolution before HD, so like 1.1 million in my case, and export like an OBJ. Oops, not this one. I'm gonna do, I have the LR, the MR, I'm gonna do a HR, that's the high resolution. So I'm gonna have a high resolution version of it. And then I'm gonna replace those guys. But in your case, of course, you don't need to do this step here because you're simply gonna be duplicating the mesh, right? Like just creating a duplicate of it. So let me just import here. And so I'm gonna go to make sure I have the same poly count, 1.1, and then import and stand HR. So now I have that guy. And now this guy here, same thing. And make sure 1.1, so the same resolution. Before you import, make sure it's the same resolution you just exported. So go with that. And now I have that guy, which is the Blackston Winston. So now I'm gonna go back here and let's look at the map the way I have it painted. So let me switch back to the flat color so you can see exactly what was painted. You see, it doesn't need to be something super complex. You just have to have enough stuff to break up. For example, like imagine like if like each pore was actually producing some sweat, right? Like was so you're not going to have like an even surface that you're going to have just like everything is it's even distributed, like everything is wet, right? You're going to have stuff that comes like it comes out of pores and things like that. It's like I normally use a spray to actually represent this kind of effect. So and another thing I do, instead of like going HD with this, because just at 1.21 million, I don't have a lot of detail I can add in there. So let me just hide everything first. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna subdivide if you just started this. So if you started with a model that's 1.1, I'm gonna subdivide one more time, right? So I go to 4.4, right? And that's what I need. I don't need more than that. More than that's gonna be overkill because remember, we have so much stuff going on. I have all the displacement, all the pores and everything. So let's just erase maybe one area here, and then we can do it again, so you can see exactly how I'm doing it. So I start with like a gray color. So for example, in this case here, we can even look what color that is. So let's just go to my brush here first, and let's keep let's see, standard 1. So this one we can mess with, just a regular standard brush with no lazy mouse or anything. No lazy mouse, right? So now if I click here and I drag, you're gonna see what color I have. So it's like a gray color, right? And it looks like this, you know, like nothing fancy. It's not the darker or not even the mid, right? It's kind of like 75% like towards black. So if I have that color, let's make sure I have everything in symmetry, right? And then if I'm painting here, I'm painting with the solid color first. So I'm gonna start, and I normally use a low intensity as well. So I'm gonna start with like 2 for the RGB intensity. So I painted like a color like that. It's my base color. Let's do this on the side right here. So let's pretend you start this whole thing here from scratch, right? And then you painted everything with a solid color like that. So we're gonna create a spray in here. So let's duplicate this default brush. So like brush, duplicate, clone, right? Clone. And then I'm gonna switch to spray. And this is the second spray, not this one here, because this one here mixes the color as well. Although this one has a color influence as well. So I'm gonna just put it at nothing there. And then for the flow, I can reduce it either to 0 completely or just a tiny bit. And now I'm gonna switch to white. And let's just do like a quick test here and see what we get. So this one here is not showing much. You see, like it's a very cloudy kind of thing, because you don't have any alpha assigned to it. So let's start with an alpha here. Let's click one here and let's pick this guy here, the alpha 7. And then there's another one that's alpha 23. This is even better because it's more like spotty. And then now we start seeing a little bit more of the effect, right? So let's do this. Let's crank the intensity a little bit. So this is like one of the go-to alphas that I use for this kind of stuff, just like for the inner layers. But then for the top layers, I use something that's a little bit more like sharper, right? Like it has the dots a little bit more defined. So in that case, you can actually use, let's see what time that is here. Pretty close to open for you guys. So in this case, I can actually use the 39 again, the one that we always make pointy, right? And then tweak the alpha. And then remember that we are playing with this a lot. So I'm just gonna reset it first and then just bring it to a point like that. So now you have a tiny little dot, right? So now you start seeing a little bit more of a interesting effect. Let me just crank it a little bit more like that, right? But it's still a little big. So what we can do, let's make even smaller here, the point even smaller. And then let's play with this effects in here. So the placement right now is at 0.5 and the flow is very low, right? So I can actually play with this. I can actually do the placement pretty big. If I do it pretty big, like at 1, you're gonna see very spread out effect like that, right? But in this case here, we wanna cover like a big area. So we're gonna go back like around like mid and then make my brush very small. And then I can start painting, right? And I'm gonna paint like in a circular motion again. So I'm gonna crank the intensity a little bit more here. Okay, so my alarm just went off and then I'm gonna be opening for you guys soon. So in this case here, basically like what I do, it's like multiple passes of the same stuff, you know? It's like, so I do one, it's very spotty like this. And then I'm gonna come with another one that's a little bit more broad. And all of this is just to add variation for the skin, right? At the end of the day, if you blur your eyes, you're gonna see like, you know, it's like the areas, if I blur my eyes right now, I'm gonna see like the lips, the tip of the nose, the cheeks, and the forehead are probably the ones with more spec, right? And everything else is less specky. So if I need more detail, I can get like really close like this and then just paint. But if I want a little bit more broad, right, I can just like zoom out and use the same brush, and then it gets more broad like that because of the distance, of course. And then I can play with the variations of color intensity. So I'm gonna go lower, so 20. And then just do that. I'm gonna try to fill up this area pretty good. The more you mix, this goes for color and for this type of texture here as well. The more you mix sizes and intensities, the more depth you're gonna have, of course. Like gonna have like a little bit more rich kind of result. But you can tell that by my maps, I could make this like so much better. You see, like it's quite sloppy in some areas. But like I said, like it's a matter of like picking up your battles, right? I can go over every single one of the steps I explained to you guys and make everything look better. But then at the same time, I'm gonna be missing an opportunity to be working on something more fun, you know. And I want to make sure that if the model looks good enough, I'm gonna push it as far as I can without touching anything. And then this is gonna be hair. I'm not gonna mess up with that. And then after that, let me just open the mic here. Then I can, you know. So again, like if you guys are not talking, if you can just like mute yourselves, and then if you want to ask questions, it's always a good time.
Hi, Kris.
Hi, Camilo.
I have a question about the micro detail maps that you use in Maya. Have you used a triplanar instead obey the UVs in the model?
If I use the Blender?
No, triplanar nodes of the
planar.
A triplanar, you know, like V-Ray has a node to avoid the scenes of the UVs, you know.
If I tried that before with.
Yeah, in V-Ray, when I don't want to see the scenes of UVs, I use the one node called triplanar.
No, I don't remember. Using that. I mean, like another thing I could try to do was actually if I use like a 3D node in Maya instead of like using something that's based on the texture, right? A 3D node would basically override the entire thing. But the 3D node is that kind of stuff like if you move the model around, it kind of like slides over it. It doesn't go with the model. It's kind of like it's based in the environment, right? But that would be a nice way to solve. But at the end of the day, if the model, it's very different from the previous model that originated it, I'd rather go and just like fix the UVs, you know, kind of like unfold and make sure that everything is even, because it's going to end up like giving me trouble for the other maps later anyway. But the important thing is that in ZBrush, once you have all those maps painted, it's just a matter of like coming back and then replacing the UVs, right? And then you're set to go.
Right, but this node, I think, is new. It's different for the 3D node, you know.
Oh.
It's not a word projection. You can choose object, and when you move the object, the map will.
Oh, it follows it.
Yeah, it follows. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And this is V-Ray, right?
No, it has this option in Arnold too.
Oh, in Arnold now. I'm gonna have to.
I don't know.
I don't know
how to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say I will say in Portuguese is aí triplanar.
Deixa eu ver. let me check. Now you messed my head. I'm speaking in Portuguese now. So let's see. So you're saying that it would be like a utility, like under Arnold? What's the name again? Did you say this texture? Triplanar?
Yeah, that's the one.
Ah, interesting. So let's just click on it. Let's see what's properties of it. So we have the coordinates space object. Oh, that's cool.
And you put your mapping in the input, and he's eliminates the scenes of the UVs. You know.
Huh. Interesting. I'm gonna definitely play with this and see. Yeah, that would be very cool actually. So I don't need to worry too much about the UVs, right?
Yeah. For environment, I use it a lot for environment. You know, you just click on automatic UV and choose this node for.
That's a great tip, man. Thank you so much. I'm gonna definitely look tonight.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. So you see, like I keep doing like a switching between like sizes and then intensities, and just like adding this. And at the end, you end up like, if you either like with colors or with just like black and white like that, you get much more depth. You know, it's like it's more rich at the end. And then of course it's going to be dependent of the amount of resolution you have. And in this case here, I have more resolution around here than I have here, so probably going to look a little bit less interesting. And then, so basically like just like over and over, just like in circular motion, very fastly, just doing that. And it's a matter of like just playing with the, you know, it's like with the placement and the flow. I normally use it low flow, so I have to do more work, like, but at the same time it's more spread out, so I can kind of control better instead of like everything's like this super strong spray, you know. So this map I'm painting right here, of course, like you guys don't have one to start right now, so you would have to paint the entire thing like by hand, right? But I already have, I can actually show you guys the way it looks. It looks kind of like that. And it's really nothing super special, you know. From time to time, if you need to actually smooth things out, for example, if you don't want all those dots visible in the ears, right? And just smooth it, just smooth using the RGB. So I'm gonna just blend this, like right there in the ears, so you don't get those little spots, right? So it's kind of like a little bit more leathery, same like inside of the ear here. So just a little smoothing, eliminate a little bit of those guys. Like that. So the ear is going to be a little bit more like that. So for the, let's see, nostrils here, see everything's a little stretched right now. And that's why I think it's be a good idea anyway to actually just correct my UVs, you know. So now I'm going to switch to black, not total black, but really close to it, like a very dark gray. And I'm going to start like making some areas darker. Just remember like that what I'm doing here, I'm actually just creating the specular map. This one is not the one for the bump height just yet. This one is just to tell Arnold to, you know, it's like to render things a little bit more specky in certain areas and less specky in other ones. You can see like around the eyelids in here, it's basically like solid white, because that's where I want all the reflections and all the super specky stuff to happen, right? And then when I get like close to the corners of the eye, I normally keep a little bit wider like that. I want shinier. I like it. It looks more alive. Sometimes you're gonna find skin that's very dry in those areas too, but I like keeping it more shiny in there, you know. So I'm just gonna add some more darkness right there around the eyelids. Bring it back here. So like going back and forth between dark and white, and then between different sizes and intensities, you can get a lot of variations with a single brush, you know. And I use the similar technique for the colors, just mixing different colors as I go. So if I'm working, for example, like the entire face, I'm gonna do a similar thing. Instead of like this gray, dark gray that I started the whole thing with, that was basically this, right? I'm gonna start with the average skin color for the entire thing. I don't even know why I have this dark spot in here. I'm gonna correct it. And then I start adding colors. So for example, like when I start showing you guys how I do my colors, I'm gonna show like how I introduce like some purples, magentas, some greens, you know, like blues and things like that. But the thing that I remember like watching some tutorials in the past, this guy he was doing a great job like painting and describing things. But it was also a little weird because he was using techniques that he used like for painting props in real life, like actual traditional, you know, how you call like practical stuff, right? And this is not a practical model, so that means that you don't have to simulate things. You know, it's like if you're painting a prop that's a mask made out of latex, you want to start with the very like dark colors, super saturated colors, because you want to start covering those with very thin layers of paint. And at the end, you're going to end up with something that simulates some kind of like transparency and translucency. But that's just a trick, you know. It's like it's not the kind of stuff you have to do with a 3D model, because the subsurface scattering is going to be calculating all the depth and everything. So in this case here, you can go straight to the color without, you know, planning all these layers and everything. But I still do something similar, which is to define some colors, like the basic colors, and then come with like some oranges and magentas. But again, like we're going to go through that process when I go and teach the coloring part, which is going to be a fun one. I think we're going to have to take like almost the entire class for that. Okay, there. So yeah, so at this point here, let's just not spend too much time here. I think you guys kind of got the idea of it. So in that spirit of not boring anyone with that. So it's just a matter of like, it's always a matter of like rendering this stuff and seeing how it looks in the renders, and then coming back, okay, so I'm gonna need a little bit more spec in there. And it's always a thing, like the fine tuning that takes forever, right? You're gonna be rendering stuff back and forth, and then always finding something to tweak. You know, it's like, oh, the inside of the ears now look a little bit too shiny. It should be shiny, but not that shiny. So you reduce a little bit more black in there. And then, oh, those spots are too spotty. So you just add a little bit of, you know, a little smoothing in there too. So it's just fine tuning. So at this point here, we have the, let's pretend this is our, let's pretend we're super happy with the first ever specular map. So we're gonna, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna rename this tool here. I'm gonna rename it to Specular, actually spec 4. Why 4? Because I'm naming stand 4, so I'm gonna make sure I can track it, right? The same version. So spec 4. And then I can either go back in resolution or not, it doesn't matter. So I can just go to my plugin in here. And then for those maps, I don't need them to be like 8K maps. I can just use like a 4K map. It should do the job just fine. And no displacement, I just need the texture for polypaint. I'm gonna crank my RGB to 100 here, but I believe that multi-map export already does that. Even if you have it 0 here for the RGB intensity, it cranks to 100 before you export. But in the past, you had to actually crank, otherwise you would export like a faint version of the map. So now, just texture from polypaint, this one should export super fast. Even though it's not HD, it should be super fast because it's just color. So spec 4, let's do that. And it's exporting for from 4-point-something million polygons, right? So it should be an okay resolution. So that's one. That's another one right there. Shouldn't take very long. So we're gonna plug this map first, and then we're gonna come back here, and then hopefully gonna have time to do the entire, like the other map as well, and show you how it's painted. The other one is just the bump height. It's actually a very simple map. I don't even use this spray. It's just like a straight on, like simple brush, just like with a very low intensity, like at 1 or 2 RGB. So it took about less than 1 minute to export all the maps, which is really nice. That's what we want, right? So let's go back to Maya and let's plug this map. It's gonna be the first time we're gonna plug the specular map. So let's switch back to my, yeah, the plan was to actually create the bump height, but I switched here, sorry guys. But let me just go back and then assign this new skin, this guy. And then just for comparison purposes, of course, we're gonna look at this guy without any subdivision level. Okay, that sounds good. And let's see how he behaves with the specular map and without it. So the new skin right here, let's expand it. So that's the right there. And let's bring the render. So let's render very quickly here without this little guy. So again, like we are seeing a lot of spec because a lot of this is coming from the coat, right? So the first thing you're gonna do, let's eliminate the coat and let's play with the specular alone. If you want like to really be able to control and see everything you're doing, it's better to work in that model that's the gray shaded model and get the spec like really spot on using that. We can keep doing that back and forth, but for now, I'm just gonna show the results here. So let's do a coat. I'm gonna remove the coat completely, 0, and we're gonna crank the spec. So the specular is at 650, so I'm gonna put at 1 here. And if you reach a limit, for example, like your specular, and it's not going further, you see that the spec is not getting speckier than that, and I'm already at 1. Arnold has this index of refraction here that's basically controls it as well. So if you crank it all the way to 3, for example, it's going to be super shiny, right? Like that. So it's a way to actually over crank things if you want to test. But in this case here, I'm just going to keep it like 1366 or 1500, something like that. And then let's plug the, let's do it like a quick render first so we can compare, of course. It's just, let's keep this one at 1.5 so we get more specs so we can see it. And let's render just a small area like that. You're gonna see the little snake skin pattern in there, hopefully. And then as soon as we have that render, let's plug the spec map. Okay, so it's coming. Right, it's going faster now. We have a little pattern in there. And let's save this one, view, store snapshot. And then now let's play with the, let's turn off the auto render and then go to my color and I can just play with the map in here. Let's go to file, turn off the filter, go all the way down, turn off my TX for now, and then go back here and find the source images in spec. So I have all my spec maps in there, right? So open, you're only gonna see one because you don't have the tiling on. So you're gonna click that one, UDIM, done. So we found 5 maps, which is what we need. We double check that's RGB, right? And because it's a black and white map, what we're gonna do here with Maya, we're gonna tell Maya to use alpha. So under color balancing here, if you expand it, there is a switch in here that says alpha is luminance. So I'm gonna click that one. And it works especially better for black and white maps, right? So now you see we have much less spec. This one now we're gonna start respecting what I had for my map. So it's gonna be a matter now of like going this back and forth and finding out like, okay, do I need more spec overall? Is the balance between the parts working? But you know, it's like I just need like an overall more spec, or is something that I have to go like area by area and actually start tweaking, right? So let's see in comparison with the eyelid. Seems like the eyelid has a good amount in there. Let's see in relation to the lips here, if the lips are catching anything. Yeah, the lips look a little shiny. That's good. And then you can always over crank things, right? Like there are a couple of things you can do. For example, if the map, like the contrast is too big, for example, you have areas that are too white and other areas that are too black, you can offset your alpha in here and you can get things to start like even out. So basically like you reduce the contrast between the super dark and super white. So you can use that one to play with it. And then overall, if you want to add more specularity, of course, then you can keep cranking the index of refraction here, right? Like I did before. So if I do 3 here, proportionally, it's going to be much shinier everywhere, but proportionally, like it's going to have more shininess in those areas that we had painted more shininess, right? So I can try to find like a sweet spot, like 1.6, something like that. That gives me a little bit more like a subtle effect, right? Just remembering that I don't have a displacement assigned in here. So when I add a displacement, everything's going to be more diffuse. So probably going to have to crank it higher once I have the displacement applied. So let's try with the displacement. Let's click the mesh, and then I'm gonna subdivide this guy. I'm gonna put the height at 1, and then iterations I'm gonna use 4 this time. So it takes a little longer, but it's gonna give you nicer results, I guess. I'm gonna process that. And from this point on, I mean, like the whole intention is to always like assemble a scene from the get-go, like I did like a couple of days ago with you guys. Assemble a scene and you have it ready to go to test. And then from that point is basically like doing the renders and comparing and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Going back to ZBrush, adjusting the maps, and then sending back. So that's what I do with the specular map, and also what I do with the bump height map. So talking about the bump height map, while it's doing this, let's go back to ZBrush. Let's talk about that map. So we created the specular map that looks like something like that. It's much more sprayy, right? It looks more like a spray kind of thing. Trying to simulate like the variations of the oiliness of the skin. But then if we go to this guy here, you're gonna see it's a much simpler map, right? And it's kind of weird now because it's not matching the other face, so it's kind of things are a little bit all over the place. So let me just like switch here, instead of stroke, spray, just dots again, and no alpha. And the RGB intensity I can use like just 1, for example. And then I can play like, let's go like full black. And that's one thing that's a bug in ZBrush actually. If I select full black, it doesn't respect my flat color in there for some reason. So for example here, if I have selected just like a very dark gray like that, it respects it, right? So I can actually paint and everything. As soon as I go full black, it kind of switched to another shader for some reason. So I normally try to use like a almost completely black, but not fully. And then let's go and add some more color, a little bit darkness here on the sides. I can actually crank a little bit more. I say 4. So just as a reminder, this one here, this map I'm painting right now, this is it's a bump height map. So what that means is that all those areas you're seeing completely black, they're not going to have any bump. So basically the bump's going to be dead in there. And as you get lighter with the color, you get more and more bump, right? So it's, this area here, for example, like for the cheeks, I can actually get a little bit more bump in there. So I can copy this color here, and then I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter in this area with a bigger brush like that. And then you see like around the nose in here, it starts getting a little bit more shiny again. So it gets a little darker, right? That means that when the bumps are applied in there, the height's gonna be smaller than the cheeks, for example. So you're gonna get a little bit more of a shiny nose right there. And then let's go back to this. Just adjust a little bit this map. Kind of like try to even things out a little bit. Those. And again, once I have all those maps adjusted, the UVs adjusted, I can just re-export all those maps. But for now, that's a very simple map, as you can see. I mean, there's nothing fancy about it. So for the ears, I mean, I have to think about like, okay, how shiny I want this to go, right? So for example, inside of the ears right now, without the micro bump helping, it's gonna be super shiny in there. So I'm gonna try to make a little bit less shiny. So I'm gonna bring the color a little bit up like that, a little lighter. So that should help to not look too shiny. And then inside of the ear, I mean, like if you're gonna be very precious about stuff, right? You go inside there and you can make shiny because you're gonna have the wax and all that stuff. But no, just like we're just tripping here because we're not gonna see that much. And then let's go around the eyelids. And again, like this model came from some other model, right? And then of course, like a lot of stuff is gonna, we see like, I went full black and it started like messing around. I don't know why ZBrush does that. So here I want more shininess in this area. So I'm gonna just darken a little bit, not by much, just a little bit. And then let's pretend we are super happy with it. But of course, like I need to do some better passes in those things now that I look at them. So inside of the mouth, for example, that's another thing, right? Like now this character has an open mouth. So in that case, I'm gonna have to actually eliminate all that whiteness from inside because that's gonna look super bumpy. And I want something that's shinier, right? I don't need like micro bump inside of it. So let's just make it much darker. I don't know how much we're gonna see because we have the teeth and all this stuff covering. So, but just you know, so you understand what's the logic behind it. The darker it is, the less bump. Oops, that stuff there.
Hey, Kris,
Yeah.
I have a small humble request.
Yeah.
Now, can you give us a little hint on sculpting the single pore?
Can I what?
Yeah, but the single pore that you did. Little rough idea on how to sculpt that.
I don't know if I get it. What you're saying?
The single pore that you use to detail the skin.
Oh yeah. The single pore.
Yeah. Can you give us a rough idea on how to sculpt that?
Oh, how to sculpt it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's just finish this this part here, and then let's see how much. Yeah, at the end. Yep. Okay, we can try that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if I cannot cover today, then we do the first thing in the when we start on Monday.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. It's really not like it. There is no mystery in there. It's just a matter of like getting like some macro photography of a face, right? Like that website we are looking with those faces like in super high resolution, and that was kind of like my interpretation of the pore. You know, it's like those little rays and things like that. But you guys maybe can come up with something that's even better than that. You know, it's like something that okay, maybe you saw is slightly different. You know, it's like the result might be better. But it turns out to be like just like my interpretation of a pore. It's not like a literal version of it, you know. If you look at actual macro photography, super macro photography of a pore, it's actually quite flaky. It has like those layers, you know. It's like a very weird looking thing. It doesn't look anything like the one I sculpted because I'm actually idealizing things, right? So let's see. I'm sorry?
Have you tried the flaky version?
No, I haven't tried yet. I think that would be super overkill because that's a super macro photography. It's kind of like a microscope, you know?
Dude, you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound, right? You're already going crazy.
So let's go. I'm going to rename this one to bump height. Something like that. And then I'm going to export this map too. Same resolution, 4K. And then blah, 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 texture. And source image bump height. Bless you.
Oh, my mic has been on this whole time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'm glad you're not farting in there, man.
One thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
So the new links you're sending out are great. You can download the videos.
Uh-huh.
But the first like 7 or 8 videos, you still can't download them. Is there?
I thought I added the option to download all of them.
Only on the last 2, from what I can tell.
I'm kind of sure that I went through all of them and I kind of like added, but I can double check for sure. Yeah.
Do you need to get? Then maybe you need to get like a link for.
Oh, maybe that's the case. Yeah, maybe if they are. Yeah, maybe it generates a different link. Yeah, I can try that.
Yeah, because the new ones, you definitely does have like a little option to download, but
yeah,
the old ones you just gave us like the main page and.
Oh no, but the main page is the one that has all the collection of videos, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that one is the one with the password.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one I kind of stopped sending that one out. It's always going to be the same link in the same password. But the new ones, yeah, each one of them gonna have that. I can make a list, you know, it's like I can put like together a list of all of them and then send in a single email.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other one, it's still just the old way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So check this out. Like, so this one here now has the spec map, and it starts to look much more natural. But when you get to the lips, you see I have that problem, right? Like it looks like the snake skin is there in the lips. So it's like all dotted. It's because we are not modulating the bump height. And that's what we're gonna do next. So I just exported everything. And then now we're gonna plug, there, I hear a whistle there somewhere. Okay, so now we're gonna plug the height of the bump map, right? So let's do this next. So under the bump mapping right here, we're gonna just stop the render. Bump mapping, you're gonna click on it, and then you're gonna see, and then once I click, you're gonna see that the map's in here. I'm gonna click this little button to go back. I'm gonna mute you guys. Someone is very, very loud. Okay, there you go. So I'm gonna go to bump depth right here, and then I'm gonna plug these maps right here. So you're not gonna see a lot because we are working with this mesh with all this stuff plugged in it. But remember that we have this bump attributes here plugged into our other shader as well, so we can switch to that shader and then start seeing things there too. So I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna go to File, and then I'm gonna turn off the filter. Again, TX, I'm gonna turn off too. RGB is in there, and then let's go to my bump height. So the maps, like I said, very simple, no detail whatsoever, because you just want to control the height of those, of the bump. But the thing is, like now I'm bringing it here, and I'm not completely sure if this is gonna be like, it's gonna modulate correctly. So I might have to play with the alpha gain and alpha offset until I get the result I want. So I'm gonna click the alpha luminous as well, because it's a black and white map. And then let's switch to the other shader we have. Let's click this one here, the black and the gray shader, so we can actually see what's going on. So I'm gonna go to micro bump, the one I created today, assign it, and then here, let's get and see if the bump that I just created, yeah, it's all there. So I have the micro displacement assigned. So in the bump here, I'm gonna have the bump value, I'm gonna have the micro displacement that I assigned the tile, right? Like it was multiplied 400 times. And then for the depth, I have the bump height. So let's see, like first how this is rendering. In order to see anything, I'm gonna probably have to zoom in, and then let's eliminate again anything that's related to displacement here. And let's do that. Render.
Hey, Kris.
Oh, I forgot to do something. Just a second. I forgot to actually turn on my UDIM. So let's go back to the bump height. And remember that I have to turn on this UV tiling. So UV dim. So now we found all of it. Yep.
I was talking with Paloma right now, and we all are getting crazy with the pore face, you know?
Oh, yeah.
We're speaking in the chat right now. You should read it because it's really fun. You're like moving forward, because for you it's really easy to understand all those kind of patterns.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I have a doubt about you use that single pore over all the head. I mean, or you change it and maybe when you finish the cheeks and maybe around the lips and that kind of stuff, and around the I don't know how to spell it, like the temporal area and that kind of areas. Do you use that same pore?
The one that I have, it actually created a cluster of the same pore. So basically, like I sculpted in a plane, like a bunch of them, and then I capture as another one. So for example, the forehead, I was using that to create some stamps and go faster. But was basically we started with the same pore, you know.
Okay.
The only thing that I do differently is that I start mixing other patterns as I get closer to certain areas. For example, like if I have the chin itself, the chin is gonna have like very similar pores, but then I'm gonna have a little bit more of a chowdery kind of, you know, it's like I'm gonna exaggerate more like the how you call the spray that I was using to actually create this variation. Yeah. And then in certain other areas, I'm gonna start using less depth for them. So instead of like using, let's say like 30 something or 40 for the depth I was using originally, I'm gonna do like a more faint version of it. And then sometimes I actually use the same pore, but then I go over it and then I smooth it out. You know, it's like I use like I don't know, like between 5 and 10 for the smooth intensity. And I smooth it out, so I have like just that, like it's almost like I can show you right here, just for illustration. I'm sorry. So let me get this
Bless you.
material. Thank you. So let's get this. Let's get that guy, and then go to HD here very quickly. So you're gonna see, for example, like you start seeing more of, you know, when you get like a cast from an actual person, you don't see as much detail as you see in my model here. You're gonna see like something that's way less detailed.
Yeah.
But if I do this, like, check this out. If I just smooth it, you're gonna start seeing that the structure is all there. So like, see, I smooth here at let's see, 20 or something like that. So as I smooth this area here in the cheeks, you start seeing much more of it kind of feels more organic. It looks more like something that you would find like in a scan or something like that, you know? So in certain areas, sometimes that's another way for me to add variation to those pores, so they don't look exactly the same. It's a combination of doing a little bit smoother like that, and then using less intensity. So like by default, I'm using like, I believe like between 30 and 40. So I would go like with let's see, for example, if I have the pore right here, let's see this guy here. No, not that one. I have 3 of them, this one. So by default, let's say 30 or something, 32, right? So let's sculpt one here at that intensity. So I get something like that, right? But then for some other area, I'm gonna reduce it to around like, let's say like 19 or 20. And then when I do the same size, you're gonna get something more like that, right? But at the end of the day, it's just like variation of the same thing, you know? And then just like I did with this area here, that I actually went there in each one of them, and then I kind of like drew a little line just to make sure that they look like they're stretching a little bit more, like I did around here in this area as well. I'm gonna start doing this around here. So you see like I start connecting more of them. So this whole form are gonna be propagating down here. And then when I get to the chin itself, then I'm gonna go back to having like very well-defined pores again. Because like areas I noticed that you see them the most is the chin, and then of course the muzzle here, because you have all the hair, and the cheeks, and then this area here until forehead. And then the forehead starts getting, depending on the type of the skin, you see more or less. In my case, whereas on my own skin, I see very clear pores, like very similar to those ones all the way around, all the way to my scalp, you know. I have very open pores in there. But
and I have another question, because right now when you open your file, I've seen that, again, I have messed up the scale of the pores. And I feel like, do you know if, I don't know how to explain it. I feel like you are always nailing the amount of pores that you have over the cheek, for example. You know if that's variable with the age and that kind of stuff, or it's only the size, but the amount is the same?
I think based on what I've seen is, not, you know, as you age, they kind of like start fading away and becoming more like a thready kind of, you know, it's like everything becomes more stretchy, like we have right here. So they kind of like, you have less of them, but in terms of the distance between them, I think they kind of like, they follow a very kind of like it's a pattern that's kind of like the scale is kind of the same. It doesn't matter what type. And it's funny because, like you said, I mean, like if you go double this, right, you're gonna look too much. It doesn't work. If you go more spread out than that, it doesn't work either. So it's kind of like you have to find that little sweet spot, I guess, you know, it's like and I guess comes with experience, you know, it's like you do a few times and then you're like, okay, I kind of get that, you know, it's like just based on the way that you sculpted your brush, for example, like if you sculpted your pore like that, and you get like that. So if you have in mind that basically like those little tentacles are gonna have to connect to the next one, right? So you kind of have an idea that, for example, like around here, that's gonna be like the connection between the two in there. And then I'm gonna go to here to form the triangle, right? So I'm gonna go something like that. So kind of like that kind of structure, you know, it's like once you start, you get the first 3 like that, and they kind of work, then you know you're gonna have to keep going with that pattern, you know. But yeah, I have no formula because it's just like observation, I guess, you know.
Yeah, that's the crazy part for me. It's like it's funny because you make it look so easy, but it's crazy. To be honest, we are we all I think we are getting crazy with this process because it's really, really hard to see this pattern.
Thanks, man. So check this out. This one here, it's working for the lips and the eyelids, but everything else is still very, very pretty much like the same height and pattern, right? So at this point here, we're gonna have to play with the bump height. So let's go and click this guy here again. Let's go to my shader, micro bump, and then bump back here, and then the bump depth. So now let's just like select one area that I can see both worlds here, which is probably like between the nose and the lips right here. So this area here should be good for us to track down. So let's, as soon as it finishes in there, we can just store so we can compare. I forgot to store before. Should be a fast render though. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, today I was actually really trying to cover just those additional maps because, like I said, I mean, like to get through the color map, that's going to take more time because it's a lot of it's like subtle stuff I want to go through with you guys. So let's save this one, store, and then let's play with the map itself. So again, under your map properties here, you have the alpha gain, alpha offset. So if I just offset it, let's see what I get here. So it's getting more and more height, right? So basically like the lips that I had very smooth before, everything is getting covered now. So let's go back in here and let's try with this one. Instead of the alpha offset, let's try with the alpha gain. If I go up, what happens? Not much. Let's see if I go down, then I start seeing things changing. So again, up basically is gonna be locked at 1. It's not gonna go over that. But if I go down, of course, like you can always like go back to your ZBrush and then tweak that map and make sure that the contrast is bigger, right? Like between the whites and the blacks. But if you don't, if you have something that's kind of working, then you can always like tweak like I'm doing here. You know, it's like you can tweak the micro bump just using this technique. You know, it's like the alpha gain. So in this case here, it starts to work a little bit better. Now I have the breakup happening, but it's not super clear. It's just gonna be enough to break up the spec on top. And then once I have this whole area here sorted out with the scale, right? Like because right now it's much bigger scale than it is there, then it should work much better. But let's compare what we had before around here. Let's wait it for resolving. So you see like around the cheeks right here, now it's a much better height than this. Unless you really want to eliminate things, right? But in my case here, I know that a lot of the specular is going to be eliminated by the diffusion caused by the height of the displacement map. So this one, like I said, this pattern is going to disappear once it's mixed with everything else. So I think at this point here, let's say like a 0.4, in my case here, it kind of worked kind of okay. So I'm going to keep it like that because the lips now are super clear. I'm not getting any bump in there. And then this area here has a decent amount of height. So let's just store it again. Let's move it very quickly to this area here. Let's see what's happening around the eyes.
Hey, Kris.
Yeah.
When you do your test renders, are you using the HDRI at the moment, or that's the custom light rig?
Let me check. Actually, I have I think both. So okay. I think the last thing we did, I had like an area light that's coming from the top, but then I added the HDRI just as a filler, right? So if I click on it, I think it's very low intensity, 0.1.
Okay, so you have both of them. Just
yeah.
I know. Okay.
Yeah, it's cool because I get the nice little reflections with it, right? So I can actually see that. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So we see like around here now I have like a super nice and clean area, but here I start getting more and more breakup, right? And I get a little snake skin kind of pattern in there. So at this point here, I can say like, okay, I'm kind of happy with it. And then we can, you know, blend things together and then do the render again. I'm probably going to put together those maps again and do a render and then post probably my Instagram or something. Probably not going to do any additional sculpting today. I'm going to stop right there. But then let me just show you the thing I said about unfolding this stuff again, right? So let me just click the nose in here. And I'm just going to click UV. And I'm going to click this guy here. Press B just to eliminate the soft selection. And I have symmetry here. I don't want symmetry. Let's turn off. So if I click with Control and then right click around here, I can just go to UVs. And I can, oh, actually just regular, I think like the, let's try that. Yeah, UV shell. So without the control, just like right click, and then you can navigate to UV shell. So you can get the entire shell. But in this case here, I think what I need is actually just the island. So let's do it differently. Let's go to the model itself. Let's go to Windows, Modeling, and then UV Editor. And take a look at my UVs in here. So let's turn off first the map. Click that little icon in there at the top. So I don't have the map in there. And then let's look for the nose. So the nose here, in my case, is all attached. So it's going to be kind of hard to resolve it without making a mess. But let's see, just as a test. If I select any number of UVs in here, and I just click Control, right click, I can go to UV shell. So now it selects the entire thing. So I don't know what all, oh man, I'm going to have to trace back because all my menus, they kind of like, yeah, the menus went away. And I think like the last time I did this was a button that I pressed by accident and, and it went away. And I had to find everything back here in the interface somewhere. Let's see, in panels, this one. Let's see if that's what solved. This one should solve actually the hypershade as well. Yeah, my menu is back, thank God. So that's it. So let's go back to Window, General, no, Modeling, UV Editor. So, okay, so I have like my UVs here. Let's do it again. Control, and then UV shell, right? So I'm gonna go to my modify, and then under modify, I have the unfold in here. And then I'm gonna just click that little option box. Then for the option box here, let's see by default what it does. So just apply it. So now with that big nose, I actually got an interesting shape in there that should actually work better. So let's try to use that one instead. Of course, like now my color map is going to be a mess, but we want to see just the bump. And then if it works, then I can just like re-import this to my ZBrush file and use this one from now on. I'm going to have to do the same for the other parts. So since I'm here, let's do it for those little parts as well. And Control, right click, UV shell. Oh, it's going to the whole thing? That's weird. You should be selecting just the shell. Okay, there you go. And then let's unfold those as well. Let's see if there's anything different. Oh, that's pretty different. Oh yeah, because I have like the bigger eyelids and everything. So yeah, if I have that, let's see those guys here as well. Let's move them to here and unfold them. I don't even know what that is. Let's see. Oh, those are the nostrils actually, just the side. Let's unfold them and then move this guy here. And those should be the eye bags, I guess. It might change a lot as well. Oh, I don't like that one. Sometimes when I want to force something with the UVs, if I kind of like it, I can just pin certain things. So in this case here, just gonna apply it, just do those two first. And then let's just say I want to keep this one fairly like the same shape, right? So what I can do, I can select like 2 points like that. and then 2 points like that, just like around. And then with shift, you just go around it like that. So when you use shift, it basically like does the inversion, right? So now that point is unselected. So this one is unselected, the other ones are all selected. And then that should pin it. So it's just gonna apply it. Whoa, what happened? I think I'm gonna have to use the legacy for this one. Let's see, legacy and then pin UVs, pin unselected. Let's try that one. Yeah, it's kind of messy, man. It's not doing exactly what I expected.
Kris, have you tried, sometimes after I unfold stuff, I go shift and if you go right click on the right, there is the optimize. So
oh yes, the optimize.
Algorithm, and after optimize, you go back to unfold and it works better.
Oh really? I never used never used that trick. That sounds nice actually.
Yeah, somehow optimizes it, and then if you unfold it, it's just, you can see the shape is more relaxed and different. But yeah, you can give it a try sometimes when.
Okay, yeah. And sometimes, did you ever use like the interactive brush as well? That's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I've used it. It's just, I don't really know what it does, and it's like only in the area that you work. So anyway, you need to go around the whole thing. So in the end, I'm ending up like unfolding it basically. So yeah, but you know, different tricks.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, man, I'm pretty sure like each one of us, if we had like kind of like a round table, you know, it's like we would have to, you know, we could bring up a lot of new techniques and stuff. Yeah, it's very cool, you know, it's like the interchange and everything. So right now I have just one side of the face. So let's see what side that is. So if I select this one, so it's the opposite side. So I have that one selected. And let's see how this thing works in here, if it's working better now. So let's see if my nose has a little bit more better, like a better distribution now. Yeah, it looks much nicer. So yeah, what I'm gonna do tonight is basically like just make sure that these UVs are a little bit better, and then do a little render in post so we can actually see. And then on Monday, we can go through a couple of things. We can start with the pore and just like sculpt one. But I mean, like if you guys watch the video, the first one, if you pause it right there, you're gonna see exactly how it's sculpted. You know, it's like the shape is fairly simple. And then, but I can go through it and kind of like maybe like sculpt another one or something. And then from that point on, we're gonna switch entirely to eye geometry, which is basically like we're gonna be covering the sclera, and then how I sculpted the sclera. What's my geometry for the iris, which is not like an entire object. It's basically just a disc, because I use kind of like a gradient to blend between the sclera and the iris, put the transparency right in the middle of the cornea. So I don't actually need, let's see here who's, yeah, I hear noises. Let me mute someone here. Let's see. Okay, I think it was Romo. Okay, so yeah, interesting that, of course, like now the UVs are not gonna match, right? Apparently, because it seems like that one is coming from some other part that's not there. But anyway, I'm gonna fix this stuff and then get this stuff going, and then go back like on Monday, do more stuff. But actually, we have 8 minutes. Maybe like this 8 minutes actually I can finish the pore thing and resolve that question, and then we go straight to eyes on Monday. I think that's a better idea. So let's see first here. Okay, so let's get this guy out of HD. I have to keep working on my likeness as well, man. I have to do a lot of work around it. But yeah, it's a lot to take care of. So it's.
So when is our Saturday class?
Oh, the Saturday class. Yes, that one's gonna happen on at 9 in the morning and then at 9 at night. So my plan is to actually have all you guys submitting all your stuff like within the next 24 hours or so, like maybe until tomorrow night. And then if I have that all in the folder, I can start looking through it, you know, it's like in sorting things out. And then I'm not gonna set up like kind of like an appointment kind of thing. It's whoever like shows up in any of those times can basically follow me. So if you want to do this in the morning, it's gonna be local time here at 9 in the morning. and 9 at night, but which is basically like a half an hour before our class normally starts, just for your reference. So if any of those times work for any of you guys, you just show up at that time. I'm gonna send the invitation. Of course, you're gonna get both invitations, and then we can do everything live. Or if you're not present, I still can go through, for example, like I go through the people who are actually online first, and then I can go through their stuff first, and then yours is gonna be put in line, basically like at the end. And then once I'm finished with all the guys online, I can just go through all the other people offline, that whoever sent the models, and then review them, and then record everything and have everything recorded so you guys can watch later. About the models, would be interesting to actually do if you want me to sculpt your model, to send like 2 types of model. I think like a Z2 would be cool. If you send the Z2, it would be nice. But as a backup, maybe like a Z2 and an OBJ, and the OBJ, instead of like the lowest resolution, something a little bit more mid-res, something I can actually see the forms in Sculpt in it. Let's say like, let's not go too crazy, right? Like too crazy over like 1,000,000 polygons, but anything 1,000,000 polygons and lower, I can sculpt on. So that would be nice, because sometimes ZBrush, if you're using a different version, like sometimes you cannot open stuff or whatever. I don't know if you guys updated to ZBrush 2.19.1. I didn't yet. So I'm afraid that if you guys do anything with that version, that I'm not going to be able to open. So that's why I'm asking for an OBJ,
Yeah, I already updated.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed anything different yet, though.
Yeah. It's just like everything every time you update, you try to open a file, right? It complains like, oh, this was saved in a newer version. It was like, fuck, man. Yeah. Just as a backup.
I'm super looking forward to your review, because I feel like I need the Pope's blessing before I can move on.
That's the thing, you guys. Don't wait for me, guys. But I mean, I'm gonna love to actually, go through that. I think I noticed like more people, they want that too. It's like to have me like really going through, and I'm gonna try my best. If you guys prefer to send like just like a screenshot, like from different views and stuff, I can just do a paint over and then suggest the stuff I'm seeing. But it's mandatory to have like your reference, it's like, so whatever reference you're using as your main reference, you don't need to send me like a ton of pictures, but let's say like, okay, I'm trying to match this one the most, and then I'm gonna try to see what's going on with the model. But of course, if you have like that main reference followed by another one of the profile and a 3/4 or whatever other angles you might have, then I can try to find, it's like to help you to see certain things in there that you might be missing. But the thing is like about likeness is that I do this with my own models, it's like I see things today that I didn't see yesterday, it's like I'm gonna start reviewing it, and it's the process of learning how the form is. The more you look at someone, the more you're gonna discover, how those forms are, right? That's why caricature artists, when they do like those caricatures, they do many of them first before they do like one that's like, okay, this is the one to go now. That's the one they're gonna be concentrating on. They do like a lot of like sketches just to learn how that face features are, right? It's not an easy thing. Like likeness it's hard, and a lot of people take for granted. I don't take for granted. I struggle with it all the time, and I mean like it comes with experience, of course. Like if I'm doing something that feels faster to you, it comes with experience because I did a lot of this stuff. But don't think that I don't struggle with it. Like it's a constant struggle. Like every single model to me is like, I always like that thing, like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to nail this one, It's like, and then you keep pushing yourself, and then after like hours and days, and it's like things start kind of like, okay, that's kind of working now, and then eventually you hate it again. It's like, yeah, that's a constant fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But now I think I ate that time, man, for the pore, but I can go through it like very fast. Let's see. We're gonna go to plane, and we're gonna create a polymesh 3D right there, and let's subdivide it. 200,000 should be okay, and then let's get it right there. So the one I have right now, it looks like this, right? So what we can do, we can actually put this one on the side right here. Even for intensity, I'm using just like 30, but when I saved my brush, I saved actually as 40. So I'm gonna do a little bit stronger than that so I can see it better, right? So let's keep this guy on the side. I can put it like that, and then maybe make a copy of it. So in ZBrush, you can actually do a click like Shift S. Shift S basically bakes it, right? So you can move and then put down here. I can actually see from another angle, maybe. I don't know if I need it though. And then Shift S again. And then now let's start fresh. So let's undo it. And then let's try to, you know, how I would approach that. So let's get the standard brush. Let's do, where is it? Standard right here. And then I'm gonna switch to my alpha 39, blah, blah, blah. Get this guy going here. And my stroke back to lazy mouse 002. Okay. So basically, like I would start with just sketching it, right? So I'm gonna just like do a little like intensity very low like that. So I'm just gonna start like from the center here. So my brush is at wrap mode, so 0. So I'm gonna start with a very faint version of it, just to get the feel of it. Very simple, right? Let's pretend that's the main target right there. So from this point on here, I'm gonna start like adding some more depth. So I can start with a bigger brush and lower intensity. So for example, I can make it very big like that.
That's that's one is my pore. It feels like that.
Oh, really? So basically, like, you know, from the center here, you start making things a little deeper, right? And then they kind of flare out. And remember, like, since we're going to be capturing this from the top, you can actually go crazy, like pulling stuff around, because it's not like we're going to be rendering this, right? Like we're just going to capture it, like basically, like if it's working from the top, then it's going to be fine. So for example, like what I'm trying to say is that if I use a move brush here, just create more irregular stuff, I can actually move this stuff around and make like a much more organic version of it, right? And this should not affect like my topology or anything like that. I should not be concerned about that. So I can do something like this, you know, just add more irregularity to everything. So the way I started with a very faint brush, just like I show you guys. I always get confused here which one I picked. Okay. And then, so I started with this small brush with a little intensity, and then I actually went to a bigger brush. So I make it bigger like that, just to start digging this inner part, so the middle part here. So now I have a little bit more of a, you know, a little bit more organic. Now I can actually start by doing that trick that I showed you last time. So basically, like you turn off the perspective, and then from the side, you can actually scale this, right? Just to add some more depth like that instantly, right? So now you have something like that. And then you go to your clay buildup. And instead of using the square brush, square alpha, you're gonna switch to something like, let's say like 37. And the intensity, I always use like 1 or 2. So I'm gonna use 2 in here. And next, can start like, really like making something that I like, not necessarily copying exactly that, right? Remember, like I'm idealizing this whole thing. So I'm gonna do this. And then as I do this kind of stuff, I start thinking about, okay, so what about the secondary little forms in there, right? So the same deal, I'm gonna go back to my brush, and then I'm gonna start like, okay, so maybe I can crank the intensity a little bit more, make the brush smaller. And I can start, okay, let's do like some secondary stuff here. Go back there. No, let's do it less. Let's start like really cutting things in different directions, right? And then flaring them out, almost like a little fractal kind of thing, right? So this kind of stuff, I mean, like, there's not much I can explain other than like, I mean, like, you look at a reference, any reference, and then you try to kind of like interpret that, you know? So, and in this case here, you can use this reference that I have, but that's basically like my own take on the whole thing, you know? I would, like I said before, I think you guys have conditions to do something much better, you know, because it's not like I spend a whole lot of time in those things. I spent a few minutes building a pore, and then that was it, you know. But definitely you guys can come up with something better than this, you know. So yeah, I think the starting point would be something like that, you know. And at the end, of course, like you can actually use anything that helps you to create more interest. So if you want to add some kind of like irregular stuff, let's see, brush mode, and then less intensity here. So I can actually do, you know, like some stuff like that. Anything I want to do with it, you know. In this case here, I kept it very clear, the one I had before. But if I want to do like very subtle, like maybe 11, something like that, just to add a little bit more irregularity, right? And even if you want to bake something like, I wouldn't recommend, but if you want to bake something in there, like the skin random thing that I had before, right? You can maybe do like a very low intensity and just add a little bit more like stuff like that, you know? Yeah, a combination of those techniques we spoke about for the past couple of days.
Thank you, man. Thanks a lot. Kris.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, it's just like, it's like the kind of thing like you have to, for example, like in this case here, the middle area, for example, I would pull even deeper just to make sure that it actually has a nice fall off, right? So I would probably like use a move brush here at the end and just like go right in the middle and just like go deeper in that area, you know? But yeah, not much I can add to that, I guess. It's quite simple, you know. It's like after you start sculpting, I was like, okay, I can actually break up. I can imagine like, you know, it's like those things like breaking up in different ways, and yeah, it's fun. Well, guys, let me check here. It's 11:35, and I think we're good for this week. I think we went through a lot of stuff, and I was talking to Sven today, and he's like, I'm trying to catch up, man. It's just so much information. Because I told him I don't have anything scripted. It's almost like, you know, I'm at work during the day, and I was like, okay, what should I talk about tonight? You know, something that I can actually optimize the time. And then I was talking to him, and I was like, maybe I should start eyes today. And he was like, man, maybe like, you know, maybe the eyes could be like next week, because we already have a lot of stuff to train and finish those pores and things like that. It was like, okay, I agree with that. So that's why I kind of took it easy today. But then I hope you guys have a nice weekend and you rest a lot, because we have a lot more stuff to go through next week in the next one. We are basically like today hitting the landmark of halfway through, which is awesome. And then cannot wait to get more stuff done, you know. It's like especially like combining eyes and putting teeth in there. It's going to be my first model with teeth. So I'm excited about that. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great weekend. And actually, I see you on Saturday, some of you. Maybe not all of you, but some of you.
All right. See you Saturday. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Kris. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for the tips. Yeah.